Well, the most important thing I can tell you is that I was born and raised in India. I found ECKANKAR by being so lonely and so distraught. I knew that I thought I had lost everything, everything precious because of the experiences that I'd had. And I did try still going to church because as a missionary daughter, we did go to church, Christian church. And that always was empty for me. I remember sitting in church, whether it was in English or in Gujarati, just floating. I didn't pay any attention to what they were saying because it didn't mean anything to me. So I would float in my imagination. I'd float out the window. I'd float in my imaginary world. So I was still floating, I guess, when someone invited me to an ECKANKAR meeting. And as I said it earlier, at first I was extremely cautious, even though in general I'm a very, very curious person. So I think it was my curiosity that kept me there. I wanted to give it a try. I'm always willing to give it a try. Whenever if something is new that seems like it might be interesting, I'll give it a try. And I knew from the beginning that I didn't have to fit into it. If it fit for me, that's great. First, I studied dreams, which I had already started with another group. That was okay. I knew how to do that, but I could just kind of coast it along. Really recently, within the last 7 years, I made a move to a senior community where I live now. Once again, I was searching for companionship, for relationship. And I had been married, so I certainly knew about companionship. I had raised 3 children. I was now a grandmother. I have 5 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. But I still wanted something of substance. And I had already joined ECKANKAR when I lived in San Diego, California, where kind of near here. But only when I started taking the practices seriously and practicing them, practices that are in a book of what you should be doing and practices that you do are a whole other thing. So I would say of that whole 92 years, the first 18 were the primer, so to speak. And almost all the rest of it I've spent trying to figure out what in the world all those treasures really meant so I could understand them. But when I started contemplating, imaginatively going to where I wanted to go, which is how I understand contemplation, and reaching the destination where I actually saw things at times in my imagination, where I felt them at times, where I sensed I was going somewhere, I began to think, wow, this really works. That's a long time to get to my destination of what I've been looking for. It's made me appreciate so much that shifting one's point of view from what doesn't work to searching to then feeling really, I won't say blissful, but truly content. I'm old. My body definitely tells me that. I have things that hurt. My balance is lousy. I've almost fallen over, and I have fallen a number of times. But inside, because of these practices, I feel like I'm soaring. So when I see birds soaring, which I saw recently, it just reminds me that whatever you do, whether it's fishing or being with a friend or whatever you do, if it makes you feel elevated or content. I love the word content. I am deeply content. And we have a young, at least I don't know how old he is anyway, we have a gentleman that works at the place where I live who's from Guatemala. He's been trying to teach me Spanish, so I have Spanish lessons on the elevator. And he's a perfect example of someone that seems quite content. Well, ECKANKAR really emphasizes singing the word Hu, H-U, and I thought it was kind of interesting, but and I kind of did it. But kind of doing anything is just that. It's sort of dabbling. And I honestly don't remember what made me decide. Maybe the fact that I had progressed through what ECKANKAR calls initiations, which I understand to mean that one's understanding of inner things shifts. Not just because you think about it, not at all that way. Singing or humming or chanting, whatever you want to call it, the word Hu, at least once a day, maybe more, with a timer, 20 minutes each time. I started playing with it. I started experimenting the way I've done with so many things in my life. I'll try it out, I thought, okay. So then I decided I would try not only hearing what I hear in my ear all the time, which is a sound. Decided I would practice trying to match the tone and the sound and the pitch that I was hearing in my ear. It was an experiment, just like my weavings were. I was experimenting. I found that if I could hit the exact match, one time I actually heard a third sound in the other ear. And I knew from my husband, who was a singer, that that's called the perfect pitch or the sweet note. And all I know is I had heard a sweet note once before when his chorus was singing, and there's something so soothing, so all I can think of is the word glorious, that I wanted to try to find it again. So I still, every day, I try to get that note. And sometimes it's quite high and I can't match it, my voice won't go that high. Sometimes I can hum it. But what I've discovered is if I sing a note that harmonizes with it, that's fine, that works just fine. And so I have to thank my husband, who was a barbershop singer, for talking about his music and for my going to many, many of his concerts. ECKANKAR talks about changing the world around us because of singing Hu, and I thought that was such an odd and rather extravagant claim that it could change the world. I mean, that seems pretty weird. But it harmonizes me. And I know for a fact, because people tell me, they want to know what I'm doing, that I'm 80 or 90, whatever it is I am, 92 years old, and I still seem so happy, I still seem so joyful. The only thing I can say is I feel harmonized. So even though my hips hurt and my this and my that and something else hurts, it's like, oh, okay, so that's my body talking, but that's not who I am. That's not the sum total of me at all. These are the books. Flower arranging. This is my life growing up in India. Two friends who tell me they're reading it for the third time, and one of them, who's quite a good reader, where is the center of gravity? Where is the center of the universe? Where is the center of the organization? Who's running it? So at this moment, I've concluded that because I'm harmonizing myself, and I know I've harmonized my apartment where I live, because people come in and they say, I just love your apartment. I don't know what it is about it. And they look around, and I do have mementos from many places where I've traveled or have lived. But it's not the pictures. That's not what harmonizes them. I think the air, literally, in a way I can't explain. That's another thing I've learned from ECKANKAR, which is probably the biggest, hugest thing, and that is you have to do what you think about and what you care about and what's important. You have to do it. It's not enough to talk about it or think it or send sweet little notes. You have to do it. Whatever the it is that you're good at. Do what you love and love what you do. I love that.